Thanks for joining, everyone. So here we are with another QualiWare Partner Spotlight webinar in our series featuring CBP. CBP has been a longtime partner of QualiWare and has some fantastic things to share with us today on the topic of DTO in manufacturing. I'm happy to be here with Mike Haley. So here's today's agenda. We're going to go through, just a few vendor slides about who we are, what we're doing in the market, a little bit about why DTO really matters now, and then we're going to pass the baton to Mike, and Mike's going to talk about a few things in terms of our integrated approach to DTO, the role of DTO in manufacturing, a very strong sector for both Mike and QualiWare, and some suggested use cases and next steps to learn some more. So let's begin. First, a little bit about us. QualiWare has been around for 34 years. We're headquartered in Copenhagen, Denmark. We have offices all over the world and partners all over the world. We're really well established, and one of the things we take great pride in is our long-term partnerships, both with our partners like Mike, but also with our clients in the marketplace. We've got offices in the Americas, in Europe. We're also opening up a new site in Australia with Leighton Preston heading that up in just about a month, I think, that will officially be opened. We've got about 1,000 customers and growing along the world. And what I think we're really proud about is many of our customers embed QualiWare into their everyday operations of their organizations. So it's not just used for one-off projects, it really becomes critical to the way they operate. Can we move forward, Mike, with the slides? And here we're going to talk about what we think the metrics that matters, right? Business outcomes that are proven, that are measured, that are repeatable. Again, some numbers on this slide really speak to our long-term relationships with our clients. Our average customer term is 15 years, which is the longest term of any vendor in our space. We're quite proud of. Our longest customer has been with us for 26 years and counting. We have over 125,000 users of our software worldwide. You can see some of the other numbers on this page. I don't want to read them out. All that to say that we are ever present and ever growing. And we'll go to one more slide, I think, about some additional numbers that we're proud of. These are outcomes with some of our customers, right? So it's of course, we're all about connecting data and working in a collaborative and cohesive manner, which is based on a Danish management philosophy, which Kuno embedded into our company, our approach, and the software years ago. But you can see that really results in measurable results and impact in organizations, right? And some of them are quoted here: a 25% increase in operational efficiency, $15 million in cost savings for another organization, and a 24-hour regulatory speed turnaround. So it's not just about a piece of software in place. It has a measurable, significant business impact and business value that is being delivered, and that's the name of the game. We're going to go ahead again, Mike. A little bit of market integrity here and tooting our own horns, and also for CBP for sure. Stefan, yes, the presentation, I just see your question popping up. The presentation will be provided to folks after the fact. But you can see that we're rated highly and consistently in the market, both by QKS Group, which is an analyst group, and that reflects a DTO assessment. You can see we're leaders and an ACE performer. CBP has been recently awarded a certificate, digital twin of an organization in Canada for 2025. And Mike, you can speak about that in a minute if you'd like. You can also see our ratings in the Gartner MQ, as well as Infotech software reviews. So we're not going anywhere anytime soon, and we're working hard to maintain our market and thought leader status. A little bit of sort of market evidence of our specialty in manufacturing. We of course service all sectors, but manufacturing is a sweet spot for us here at QualiWare. There might be some people from one of these organizations on our registration list today, I think. But you can see we've done some great work with Saab, with GPV, and with KK wins. And there's some links here. So when you guys receive it, you can go to those use cases and learn more specifics on that. In terms of manufacturing, I was talking about this. I'm actually sitting in Vegas, so if I sound a little tired, it's because it's early in the morning here. But I was talking about our QualiWare Go app yesterday with some of our analyst friends. I'm at a Gartner conference, and there's quite a bit of interest in the ability to take QualiWare. It's called QualiWare Go. And again, we can add a link to a video about this, and you can find information on our website that people can take the QualiWare Go app on their phone and use it in a mobile way in factories and plants, etc. So there's actually quite a bit of interest on this. And we'll move forward. Interesting enough, I think we've all known about DTO. It's been talked about for a long time. I think Mike and I agree, and I had a conversation about this yesterday, Mike, with one of the analysts. It's really only in the last kind of 18 to 24 months where we're seeing some real practical examples of organizations getting DTO done and hitting the road, as they say. And there's some, it's not just Gartner who's noticing that. I was recently having a conversation with Infotech, and their lead analyst, Andy Neal, also is starting to really see folks, putting some DTO initiatives in place and putting it in practice rather than just talk and experiment. So you can see here that McKinsey has quoted that, a digital twin can increase decision making by up to 90%, right? So instead of just, supposing things, they're doing these things in the digital twin of the organization to see the impacts and consequences of initiatives and ideas before they're put into place. Deloitte calls it, an evolving digital profile that helps your business performance. And of course, Gartner quotes the fact that using that operational data to understand and improve how the organization can deliver value and get things done faster and with more impact. So we're, really starting to have a lot of conversations in the market with some of our clients and some prospects about, well, we've thought about this for a long time, but now we actually want to do it. So how do we get that done? And that's usually when I pass the baton to someone like Mike to talk about how to get that done. So Mike, we're going to do a couple poll questions, I think, in this webinar. And here's the first one. So folks, get your phones out and please participate. We'd love that. So how familiar is your organization with the concept of a digital twin of the organization? So let's give it a minute and see the results.
If you don't have your phone handy to scan that QR, you can just go to menti.com on your computer as well and put that code in. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I'm still in conference mode. It's all about scanning on the phone. All right, well, it looks like we've got some results coming in. Here we go. Oh, fantastic. Yeah. Yeah, so I think the voting is reflecting what we were just talking about. But I'm pleased to see that 33%.
Yeah, this is great. We've got some good core understanding and a couple of people that are actually implementing. That's fantastic. So hopefully we'll be able to provide some additional insights on how you can take it to the next level.
Exactly. Okay.
Great.
All right. I think we've got limited time, so let's dive into the meat and potatoes, Mike.
Okay. Thanks, Brenda. Thanks for that introduction. And thanks again, folks, for joining us. So this is going to be particularly focused, obviously, on manufacturing. And I'm sure most of you know about Industry 4.0. It's been around now 15 years. Came out of Germany and Hannover Messe, where it was first launched, I think, in 2011. And there were 9 key pillars of that. And digital twin and really simulation capabilities around digital twin were one of those key components. So we've been leveraging that in what we do with simulation management with the collaborative business planning tool. This is a fairly recent report from it's an Indian IT research company. And they've looked at the market growth of digital twin and where they expect that to be over the next 5 years. So you can see it's expected to grow significantly, about a 30% CAGR rate. Fastest growing areas are Asia Pacific. So good that we're going to have that office in Australia. And then, of course, North America, where I know many of you are based as well. These numbers are fairly consistent with Gartner. Gartner was actually the company that coined the term DTO back in 2018, and they have been publishing what they call market guides up until this year, that they're actually doing what they call a magic quadrant, which is a kind of an evaluation of the technologies that play in the space, just like QKS has been doing for the last 5 years, Gartner this year. And I think that's coming out late summer, is that?
It should be in a couple of months, I think, Mike.
Right.
Yeah. But it is notable that Gartner has decided to issue one in the category.
Exactly. So it's kind of, Jeffrey Moore's term, cross the chasm, shall we say. And of course, manufacturing has been a big driver of digital twin, and they're early adopters. The German connection there would substantiate that. And about the estimate here is about 35% of the growth is going to come out of the manufacturing industry. And again, that's the full digital twin market. So let me explain what that means. So digital twins can be actually categorized, and this comes from Gartner's research back in 2022, where they talk about 3 types: discrete, which is really the digital. It's more of a control system where you're monitoring and able to get instant feedback on, a piece of equipment, let's say, in this case, a jet turbine. When you put those together, you're talking what they term a composite digital twin. So the example here is a drill rig. So you think of all the different pieces of equipment that, do stabilization as far as the drilling and all of those things coming into a central control room to monitor and be able to manage. That's truly a digital twin. And then DTO is more around, obviously, the organization, but all the things that are necessary to support that production front line. So think of maintenance, think of management, HR, training, facility, all of those things that all contribute to your final output of a product and or service. And the data required for these, I mean, as you're down in discrete, you're talking about real-time data. And this is where I think there is almost like confusion, but needs to be clarity around the types of data that are necessary for these different types of DTOs, of digital twins rather. So with an organization, we call it what we call as decision time. So what do we mean by that? So decision time is really around how you're making decisions. So in the real and near time, it's mainly operationally focused. So you're looking at how your equipment is running today. You're looking at demand scheduling, maybe on a near time basis, i.e. for the shift, what are you going to change in that shift? How overall, is the general performance of that production line? And that's truly the digital twin, which is the real-time connection. When you start extending your decision timelines over weeks, months, quarters, or even years, you're talking about DTO. So if you think of some of the decisions that your organization is making around, costing, profitability analysis, that's not typically done real time. That's done over some aggregation. It could be a week, could be a month, could be a quarter. Risk analysis, you're not doing that. It's more of a planning mechanism. Same thing with strategy implementation, looking at capital investments, even looking at mergers and acquisitions as far as acquiring different technologies, different companies, and so on. So those are all longer term, and they're sort of the data that supports those is more aggregated over periods of time. And the other distinction is those types of decisions are done by multifunctional teams. They're not just an operation. So you have strategic planning, you have finance, you've got HR folks participating. So it's a real collaborative environment. And if we're going to put this in AI terms, I'm sure you've heard the term human in the loop, maybe overused in some case, but that's really what this does. It supports that collaboration. So the solution collaborative business planning intentionally named as a means to get everybody on that same page.
Yep, it's a team sport, that's for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
As far as Q&A, I know we're going to have some time at the end, so feel free to put any questions in the chat. Brenda's going to do the monitoring. I'll do the talking for the next little while, and but we'll address those questions at the end. So this is kind of the QualiWare space, and I know a number of you are experienced QualiWare clients and implementers, and you're more probably familiar obviously with the compliance and the enterprise architecture as core strengths, but business process management has always been, and now even more so with CBP, a prime focus in this area called DTO, or you could call it a business management system. So when we look at business process management, what collaborative business planning brings to the table, it's focused on process optimization. So I'm going to be showing you some of these in a live demo. So we use lean concepts and value stream mapping. I'm sure many of you in manufacturing are very familiar with those concepts, probably one of the most universally applied lean techniques in business. Simulation, so the ability to run future state conditions, both from a costing, resource planning, and lead time delivery perspective. So I'll be showing you that. And then resource and cost management, generating new information, not just current information and new insights on current information, but looking at the future and what could be, depending on decisions that could be made. And then on business capability management, because we follow a technique called theory of constraints, again, well known in manufacturing, where you're identifying where your bottlenecks exist in your process, how to navigate around those and relieve those constraints to improve overall throughput. So all of those things are handled by CBP on the BPM, the business process management side. And then we bring that all together. And this is the beauty of the QualiWare interface, because we can bring all of the components, including concepts around enterprise architecture, compliance, risk management, application portfolio management, and bring that all into a centralized view that's customized for the users based on their needs and their decision-making capabilities. So we'll show some of these little live. So I want to talk a little bit about our business ontology. And ontology is really an important term, because that's really what we're doing, is we're defining how the business operates. And that provides the structure for data collection and data use in generating future state results. It's also very important from an AI point of view, and with the advent of AI, and I'm going to be showing you some of the things we're doing with AI. It's important that AI understands the business structure so it can predict into the future accurately and give you a good indication of what the potential is for idea, scenarios and so on. So again, I talked about lean value stream mapping. That's a core component of the solution, and we'll see that. And then we use a technique called activity-based planning. Many of you probably heard of activity-based costing. This is an evolved form of this. It's a demand-driven approach to understanding costs and resource requirements. And we glue that together through the activity layer, because activities are the core fundamentals of business processes. So understanding your activities, how they interconnect, and what it takes from a processing time to deliver those activities as part of the process. So that's very much the operational dimension, and that gives us the capabilities, first of all, to have a very visual interface so everybody can understand the flows of the business, but also identifying waste and looking at the efficiencies and be able to do true demand planning. Because we use an activity-based planning approach, the resource dimension is intimately tied into these models. So when you're looking at your people, your facilities, your equipment, we can actually see how they're being consumed by the process and the rates of consumption. And then because we have constraints on those resources, we can apply theory of constraints and look at things like utilization of our resource. How effectively are we deploying those resources? Recognizing the higher the utilization, utilization, the lower the cost. So understanding those key components. That also plays into OEE, so overall equipment effectiveness. Those components can be readily derived from doing CBP modeling as well. And then probably equally important, because we have the resource mention, this is where we tie in the finances of the business. So an organization, you basically pay for your resources, and then you make decisions around how to use those cost elements in the delivery of your products and services. So we do that mapping from the GL structure, from the account structure to the resource structure, and then the model, the operational model, kind of pulls those costs in through the process, and I'll be able to show you this in the tool. So that allows us to do more accurate costing and profitability analysis, operational budgeting. Can also be used for future state, like ROI decisions on, say, capital investments. So all of this gives us that ability now to simulate the impact of change in your organization. Which organization isn't changing these days, as far as the impact on operations, on resources, and on finances. So I thought before jumping in the model, it'd be useful to kind of do a little walkthrough of where this actually demo model came from. This came from some work with a company. I'll be going through their use case, because the theme of our talk today is how do you get this done in kind of 8 to 12 weeks. So I thought this would be a good preamble. So Crosby Foods, they're a Canadian-based food manufacturer. For you Canadians, you probably recognize them as Crosby's Molasses, but they actually do a lot more dry product. They actually package all of the hot chocolate and all of the iced tea for Nestle Canada right across the country. And they've got 10 different production lines. So this is one of the production lines. So what we're going to see are things common to manufacturing. We're going to see some of the things around the bill of materials, i.e. in the things that go into the final product. We're going to see some of the activities that take place, and these are things that we're going to be able to model in the CBP application. Things we may not see, I'll show you a little bit of rework happen. In fact, I think you can see her over here. We'll see that in the live video here. But we'll just go through this process. So when I take you over to the digital world, you'll see how the real turns into digital. So let me start this up. So Bartelt is a German production. So you can see it's an older piece of equipment. That's called the web roll. So that's where the pouches, how they get the supply in. Those get formed, basically. You can see the rework happening in the back. They get sealed on the sides. They get date and code stamped. And then they're cut into the individual pouches, and then they're filled. So the fill comes from the blending operation, which is up on the mezzanine, all the custom formulations. Top gets sealed, and then they're picked and put on a conveyor. In this case, this is a drink crystal product, so they actually go into a bagger, automated bagger, in groups of 3. So that machine basically does the insertion, does all of the sealing around the bags, and if they come the other side, and there's another web roll obviously there for the plastic packaging. And this is where things get very manual, at least currently at Crosby. So it's manual pack into the cases. Hopefully the guy can keep up with the production speeds, and then it goes through a case taper and coder, and then becomes hand bombed and palletized on the back end. So that's the process we're going to digitize when I show you the demo here. So that's my cue. These are the things that we're going to see. I put that in there so when you get the deck, you'll hopefully be a little reminder of what you saw in the live demo. So let me go to the application. So this is part of the QualiWare tool set. We call it the CBP modeler. For QualiWare people, it's called QLM. And that is the tool where we build shall we say, the ontology and build the model around the ontology. So over here, these are common. So we're looking at the value stream map. So there's the pouch filling. I made this up. This is all fictional data, of course. So this is stands for marshmallow. So this would be marshmallow hot chocolate. I'm sure we've all had some of that. And we see the pouch filling place. Here we've got cartoning, substitute what you saw in bagging for cartoning. So pouches inserted into a carton, and then those get inserted into a case and then packed and palletized. So very simple process, just from an illustration point of view. The palette on the right-hand side gives us all the common components of a value stream. So the activities, customer blocks, info blocks, all the things. Again, if you've done VSMs, I'm sure those will be familiar to you. What we can then bring is data into the equation. So we've done that. We do that through a series of variables. The little green V stand for variables. So some of the things that will impact on our delivery, our lead time delivery of this product would be obviously, the run size, which impacts our changeovers, the actual production speeds, the breakdowns, the complete and accurate, how what's our scrap rate associated with pouching in this case, with cartoning in this case, and we bring all of this into the mechanics of the different activities. So if I open up one of these activities, I go to the CBP, you can see this is, again, for you QualiWare experts, you'll recognize this, but we have a new CBP component, and I can actually go and look at my VSM data. So a lot of this is populated by variables, which really serve as the levers to allow us to do future state simulation planning and so on. So that's kind of how that data flows in there. So we have the common things on lead time, we've got processing time, then we have the wait times, that those are really governed by downtime associations in the production line. And now we can actually calculate. So we can actually dynamically calculate the timeline and the common VSM metrics. So we looked at the total lead time is about, now this is per case, about 24 minutes. And again, this is fictitious data, so probably a little quicker than that. The total processing time, that gives us what we call our value added ratio, which is something we're always trying to maximize. And then we have our rolled throughput yield, which is really the product of all of the scrap rates, I guess, along the way, both in pouch filling, cartoning, and palletizing. Obviously, not too much in palletizing, but some problem areas in cartoning and some problem areas in pouch filling. We'll see this reflected in the ABP component of the model. What you may notice here, as far as new information that traditional VSMs don't give you, is actually we can determine how much staff is actually required to handle this. This is a monthly model, let's say from April of this year. So how much staff do we need to do to handle the volume? And that volume, if I hover over here, you'll see the flow, which is the volume of cases that are done in that time period. And we actually start to see some cost information, some unit cost information. Again, something usually quite foreign to a VSM. A lot of the VSM costing is done, I'll call it back of the envelope, but it's done kind of external to the VSM. So we bring this in, and the way we do that is we tie these activities into the activity-based planning model. So this is a little more complicated because I wanted to show some of the key components. So on this first page, it's a 2-page model. So we're basically looking at the resource label. So first thing we see is, same time period, and we actually see a very high level. Here's our total revenue for this month. Here's our total cost, and here's our profit for this month based on the costing to supply these materials. Now this is just one plant. It's actually 2 pouching lines on one plant, which is the pilot that was done at Crosby's. So if we look up here, we've got a couple of labor groups. So the production operators, those people you saw on the line. What we didn't see are the maintenance mechanics that get called out when things go down, if they're doing preventative maintenance and so on. We've got our bill of materials around. They buy in their, in this case, in Crosby's case, they actually make it, but we're just simplifying the model here that they buy in 3 types of hot chocolate. So plain hot chocolate, flavored hot chocolate, and this marshmallow hot chocolate that we saw on the VSM. We have some packaging materials as part of the BOM as well. And then we can also do some colorization on here. So we've done some to show, which ones in orange are what we call value added, things that need to be done to support the process. I put some green in there to identify opportunities, things that are related to internal failure, non-value added activities, and so on. One of the interesting things we can do with this in manufacturing is we can get at the total cost of quality, both good and bad quality, by identifying things and summing things as we go through the process. So this is kind of the core resources. Then we have our facility, our production area, two different space allocations. We've got two pouch lines over here, and we have the one cartoner that's used exclusively for the marshmallow manufacturing. And now we start to see, well, how are those used? So let's say the cartoner. So the cartoner, it's used when it's running, and that's where it actually consumes electricity. So we actually see this connection to electricity. So that would supply the overall plant and the two pieces or three pieces actually of equipment only when it's running. So we're assuming that when the machine is down for preventative maintenance, there's no electricity, which is why we have to separate this to get the true cost of runtime versus downtime. The other thing you'll notice is we've got these little circles. Those are what we call connectors. So they basically allow us to glue parts of the model together without necessarily having lines going everywhere. So it'd be particularly in large models. This is only a 2-page model. Most, I'll call it industrial strength models, will go anywhere from 10 to maybe 40 or even 50 pages of content like this. So we need a way to make those connections. And then in those connections, we can actually see consumption rates. So for example, this is 300 kilowatt hours per machine hour. So that's the electrical demand when the cartoner is running. And I can compare that. So this is some of the data that we need to drive the model and do the calculations. So finances, if I looked at, let's say my production area, let's open that up. And so this is some of the data associated. So, we have to have a unit of measure that actually defines some of the data consumption requirements. We have some capacity definition, in this case, 5,000 square feet for this part of the production area. And this is where we can layer in our costs. So in this case, we've got some plant insurance, we've got some depreciation. Again, kind of high level, keep it simple. This is actually a model we use in our training workshops as well. So participants go through this and, kind of understand how to build it. So I'm just giving you kind of the finished product.
No, it really works, Mike, and I think it's great to see so much clarity in, where there could be so much complexity.
It is the visibility, and that's the real value of having that QualiWare base. That's the platform because of it's great at visualization. That's what attracted us to QualiWare from day one. So if I go down to the second page, this is where the process happens. So here we have our marshmallow line that you saw in the VSM. These are the exact same activities that we saw with the VSM. So that 4,200 cases and those costs and unit costs, they're actually driven by the calculation of this model. So the model actually works, and this is an activity-based planning concept. So it's demand driven. So the demand of the products, which are these little home plates, it's baseball season, so I'll use that analogy. And so we have the volume of each of these products. So we see that the plain hot chocolate is their big seller, 12,000 cases a month, 6,000 for flavored, and only 4,000 for marshmallow, more of a specialty product. We have different pricing though. So this is again where the sales folks and marketing folks need to be involved and understand the impact of this from a profitability point of view. And that's what starts the process. So the flow goes up. So we look at things like scrap so we can get at the accurate cost, the fully loaded cost of scrap. And that's really, really key. And then we can see things like, changeovers, which are run size based, roll changes, downtime associated with resetting equipment or feeding new web rolls, breakdowns, obviously opportunity costs, and so on. So that's kind of, and we can get detailed information. So if I open up one of these, the other thing we can get with the tool is the ability to look at, summary results and contributions. So this is a nice report because it shows the operational requirements, how much of each resource is required, and what the contribution cost is. So that's kind of a blended operational financial view.
Yes.
Or we can got to keep the finance folks happy, so we can actually create an expense report at any node in this model. But the real value comes when I want to run a scenario. So let's say sales comes to us and say, hey, we have an opportunity. We can get 50% more product. So I'm going to take it from 12,000, 18,000 for our plain hot chocolate. I've got a line on a new contract, and but that's going to require us to drop our price. So let's say it goes from an average of $18 down to $16. Well, is this a good thing to do? Some people say, well, yeah, more production's great. Yeah, maybe we can absorb that price because we're going to better utilization of our resources. So we have a variety of things up here. We can run that calculation. The first thing it does say, well, no, you got a problem. You got some broken constraints here. So if I go back to my resource line, I don't have enough operator and I don't have enough pouch line time to handle that extra volume. So now I have some of the other levers. I mean, if we were in operational efficiency mode, we said, what can we do? Speed the line up, run longer batches, reduce other thing, downtime, scrap, and so on. We're going to take a brute force approach. I'm just going to increase our shifts per month. I'll just add, say 20% more shifts. I'll go from 20 to 24. You'll notice as soon as I change a data element, that the model needs to be recalculated. This is dynamic. Yes. Everything will change based on any data change that I do. Yeah. Real time from a simulation point of view. Now, when I calculate that model, I have no broken constraints. So it will now allow me to do the financial. That's a really important thing too in manufacturing, because a lot of sales marketing folks will come forward with ideas around how to improve profitability. Operations folks sort of shake their head and say, no, we can't handle that volume. Get with the program. So now your salespeople can get with the program before they come to you with these wild ideas, right? And it won't mislead you. So you're not going to take standard costing information and kind of extrapolate into the future when you don't have any operational constraints and bearing on how the business works. But if I do run that financial calculation now, I can actually see, okay, my profit went from 57,000 to 60,000, now $3,000 a month. Is that worth it? Maybe not. It's a bit of a wash. So you could make some decisions on that. So anyways, that's the modeling tool. That's what we call our CBP modelers. That's where they build the structure. They use the ontology, and really business is broken into resources, processes, and outputs at its simplest form. So we try to keep this simple, make it easy for people to understand. We can then deploy this into the QualiWare web interface. And this is where we can bring in other components of the QualiWare world. So in this case, I'm just drilling down on what you've seen. But so we can put information here. Large models, we can put some search capacity. There's some collaboration tools here. And again, you QualiWare folks, I'm sure, are very familiar with that. But if we drill now into the model itself, I can actually start to see that visualization if I kind of expanded that. And now this is something. So the modeler tool, is a bit of a specialist tool, somebody that knows their way around and actually can construct the model. But this is how it can be deployed across the enterprise. So again, with a little education, maybe a little more than I'd be able to give you today, people will understand the flows, and they can understand as they click on different components, they can get information around the utilization, the costs, the financial breakdowns, and so on. So we can interact with the model kind of as you navigate around that view. You can also do that in a more kind of summary view. I just zoom out a bit here so we can see. So as I click any of these, I'll see the inflows, what's needed for this, where it's going to, full cost detail. I get that kind of contribution report, so I can get more detailed information by zooming out. But we're working on and have been working on one really cool component with our AI development in cooperation with QualiWare. We call it the simulation assistant. So this is an AI analysis capability. So
Yep.
we can actually see very visually now. So it's dashboards on command, as it were.
Yeah.
So previously we would take results, we would create Power BI dashboard. You can still do that, but this is a lot more interactive now. So I can actually see here's my what I call my base case, and I can see my revenue there, my costs, and my over profitability. Green, yes, what we want. We want green. I can look at my cost breakdown by resources. I can select each of these and change these graphs and so on. I can look at my demands, so my plain and my marshmallow. You can see that this was, I didn't point it out in the other one, but this is the big loser for us. And I can see the flavored. So our big winner here is our plain, followed by this, and then this is one that we might want to consider removing. I can get more detail on the activity analysis. I can get financial details. So if I want to drill into that marshmallow one, here's what I'm losing, 522 a case, and here's my breakdown on why I'm losing that, because these are my cost impacts and my revenue impacts. I can see things like resource utilization, how well I'm using my resources. And because we've got some AI and it understands our ontology, it'll come forward and understands the business as well, because of its AI capabilities to understand, general business. It comes back with recommendations on things you might want to consider. Some of it would be obvious to manufacturing folks. Some might be, I never thought of that, right? So you can go and you can do the same thing that we did. I can actually go and I could change my, what did we do here? We went to our marshmallows, so I'm going to change this to 18,000. And I'm going to run that simulation. And sure enough, it comes back instantaneously now with those issues that I have, those broken constraints. And actually, if I go over here, I can now see, because it's going to stack these side by side. And I can see I get this red because I'm over capacity. And I don't get any financial information. It actually says financial calculation. This has to be resolved beforehand. So that's one simulation. I can save these simulations. I can recall them. I have a comparison. Again, there's lots of stuff here. We don't have time, unfortunately, to get into the detail. But one I do want to share with you. So I'm just going to do a quick reset on that. But we do have the AI assistant. So let me expand this so we can actually get a little larger font. And I know it's probably small anyways, but I'm going to say, hey, that marshmallow is a bad product. It's like, why don't we get rid of it? So it understands the model. I don't have to be very specific. I'm just going to say drop MM. So let's see what it comes back with when I say get rid of the marshmallow product. It says, okay, I'll drop marshmallow. And so it runs the simulation. And it flags that we have a problem here. We have unassigned costs. And you may remember I said the cartoner is dedicated to the marshmallow. Now we have no volume to carry that, yet I've got a cost there. It's going to tell me, you got to make a decision on what you're going to do with this carton. You're going to sell it? So the first thing it's saying is you're doing PM on a product you're not using. Or, shall I proceed ahead and stop the cartoner PM? Well, yeah, that's a good idea. Thanks for that. Let's say yes. And it'll go off and say, okay, great. I'll get rid of those PMs now. And let me rerun the calculation. And then it goes up now to the cartoner and says, okay, you've got fixed costs on this cartoner, both from a space allocation point of view, as well as the depreciation and cost. So it comes up with some ideas around what you might want to do. And again, when you see the recording, you can slow this down and have a closer look, perhaps, or things like that.
Yeah.
So
there is a quick question, Mike. Are the costs including manpower?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. And what I've shown in this demonstration, the manpower would be the maintenance and the production operators. But think about all the other. So you've got supervisors, lead hands, plant management. So you can bring all of these into the model as well. Look at their contribution to, direct production processes or sales processes or marketing or HR related. So we can make all those proper connections in, kind of a larger scale model. So it says, okay, how do you like to treat this? So let's say sell the cartoner. The nice thing about AI is you don't have to be really good on spelling. Sell the cartoner and move depreciation to production area. So we got to carry that cost. We paid the capital. We got to still depreciate that, even though maybe we got some money. We could say, hey, I got $10,000 for it. Maybe we don't have to do that. So to confirm, it just says, hey, is this what you want me to do? And I say, yeah, that's exactly what I told you to do. Thank you. So off it goes now again, and it'll make those appropriate changes. And we don't have any red warnings here anymore and things like that. So if I go to my P&L analysis, I can actually see I've gone from 57, I've gone down to 30, like I'm going the wrong way. And why am I going the wrong way? I'm going the wrong way because I now have freed up capacity. That's got to be carried by the other products, the two remaining products. So, in fact, I could even look at that if I go to my flavored hot chocolate. I can see here now, here was the base case. I'm actually losing money on my flavored product as well. So we say, oh, maybe I should get rid of that too. That's what a lot of companies would call the death spiral, because you'll work yourself out of business if you don't make best use of your
well, I mean, these are key insights that support better business decision making, right? So,
exactly. So anyways, that's a little flavor. I know that's quick. You can, as I say, slow down the recording. Let me talk about the 8 to 12 week and how do you implement this.
Sure.
So just firstly, quick summary. So DTO models, they're put together by architects and process owners that have the deep understanding of the business that you're modeling. And they use the modeler application tool that I showed you. And that really captures the business ontology. And then we load that with data. So we gather data from, in manufacturing, typically an ERP system, other financial systems, maybe stuff that's on the floor. Excel still widely used from data collection point of view. So we bring all that in, but we bring it in a structured manner because the ontology and the way we describe the business defines our data requirements. And then we can push this out and provide this AI enhanced insight for our analysts, for the process owners to get new information, be able to run scenarios and simulations. But again, because we use that QualiWare, we have web interface, all of the people in there, the managers, the executives, can see and get the detail that they need and actually provide, collaborative engagement to participate in the collaboration tools associated with QualiWare allow us to do that. So that's kind of summary of what you've seen.
Yeah.
Crosby's, their implementation approach basically started with a multifunctional team. So they had somebody from production, they had their CI manager, and they had a financial analyst because we do need to make that mapping into so we need somebody that knows how to get that financial information. They did some training. So we offer two different types of courses. We have an implementing a DTO course that takes you through a methodology for implementing, and then the CBP modeler course is the deep dive on the technology. This is more the business user, and this is more the modeler themselves. Take a phased approach. So we always recommend starting with a pilot, and that's what we're talking about with that 8 to 12 weeks, getting actionable results in that short 2 to 3 month time frame to prove the technique, to build internal support, and get the payback to justify going to larger scale operation of the tool. Having all plant management, they did a really good job. So the lead hand supervisors, plant manager, a lot of education, and they participated in a lot of the data collection. And the senior leadership team were actively involved as well. So those were key components that made this worthwhile. We have an 8-step methodology that we recommend for those, and I'm going to go through this fairly quickly. So begin with the end in mind. Why are you doing this? What are you hoping to achieve? What burning platforms are you trying to resolve that the pilot even will help you with? Analyze your resource structure, so you know what costs you're going to be bringing into that model and what resources are consumed in that. Do the process analysis. If you've already got value stream done, you're, I won't say halfway there, but a good long or
it's a good good progress to get you there.
Exactly,
sure.
exactly. And
Yes.
this is great for QualiWare clients as well, who have already probably maybe done some business process mapping or flow diagrams. We can leverage that existing knowledge and bring that forward.
Yeah.
We can then design the diagrams using that ontology. We bring in the relevant data defined by the connection points and the components that we bring in. This is the most probably important step, is like once we build the model and the tool, we need to validate it. We need to make sure it's generating accurate results for today or for some historical period, typically last month or last quarter. Then we have assurance we can move forward into improving understanding, getting more detail, those operational and financial views of the organization, and then optimizing and planning for the future. So this is what we've done now with this new AI enablement. We're looking at right now what I showed you, step 7 and step 8, and development wise, we're looking at where and how do we use AI to facilitate, probably, probably step 2 to step 6, and maybe a little bit of step 1, depending on what AI you're using and how much information you've given your AI around your business. So Crosby's, again, they started with a pilot. They got that done in a 2-month period, and that was 2 lines, one of which I showed you in the video. They then, so this was, I'll say, consultant led by one of our partners that did the implementation work. Then with a little bit of coaching along the way, they went in and finished their whole dry lines, all 7 of them, over the next 3 months. And then they tackled the wet products, either molasses products that they produced. So they basically got the whole thing done in about seven months, the entire plant, 10 lines. Benefits, basically, it was done initially because of costing and profitability concerns with long-term contracts they had with many of their, they do a lot of work in retail, like white label packaging. So they wanted to truly understand. They found they were over and under costing some of their products by up to 30%. So major decisions being made there as a result of that. Budgetary planning, looking forward, they do a lot of contract labor work. They run a six-day, 24-hour operation. So labor is always a challenge, getting the right labor in. They found opportunities for optimization of production lines. They saved about 160 annual production hours in just manufacture of one type of product alone.
Wow.
And about 200 hours of production capacity available as a result of changing some of their sanitation procedures, which again, they knew in their heart of hearts, but now they had the data to support that, to move forward and to plan that out. And then strategically, they used it for ROI. They invested in a safety management and quality management system, production management system, get rid of all the paperwork that was flying around the plant. They also justified a robotic arm for cartoning. Got the payback on that by doing future planning on labor savings and so on. But I think they would all say that the biggest benefit was that everybody now had that common understanding of how the operation worked. So it's a softer benefit, but a very important benefit for
still important.
Streamline.
Yeah,
exactly. So I've got a QR code there, and again, when you get the slides, if you want to read more on that, we've got a little more detail on the website around that particular use case. So some of the things that CBP DTO modeling does, it provides that common understanding of the business. Everybody, whether they be involved in the supply chain and HR, production, QA, they're all working off that same song sheet. It avoids rigid planning and costing solutions. Sometimes budgeting solutions are a little baked in. Even some of the ERP planning systems don't have the flexibility that you might need around having a true DTO model. One of the biggest things I hear, particularly here in Canada, is the availability of skilled labor. I think it's universal. So modeling your labor efficiencies based on the skill and the training and so on that goes into that. So that's a really interesting. We actually did, wasn't in manufacturing, we did a lot of work with Passport Canada back in the problem days that I think every passport organization had around when travel restrictions were removed after the pandemic, and all of a sudden a flood of passport applications came in over 2 years. You got them in 2 months. So they had to do looking at their labor requirements and how they did training, how they structured their skilled labor in that capacity. And then green, I mean, regulatory and compliance requirements. So looking at the impact of those on your resources, on your throughput, on your GHG, things like that, you can actually model that with the tool as well.
Yeah.
And just to finish up, we started with Industry 4.0. I'm sure many of you now have heard of Industry 5.0. It's been around a few years now. And these are the 3 pillars of Industry 5.0. So it's building resilience in organizations, making sure that they're sustainable, not just environmentally, but business-wise sustainability. And probably the most thing you hear about is making sure, the human in the loop, the human centricity. So if you think about resilience and the ability to kind of do better planning and analysis, CBP offers that capability. Strategic insights, looking at longer term decisions and how you can model those and what your impact of change is going to be. And then having that QualiWare interface that allows you to do common communications and collaboration around decision making. And the good news is that if you look at some of the key technologies that came over from Industry 4.0, digital twin, and per your point, Brenda, the last 18 to what you're hearing from the analysts, last 18 to 24 months, growth in digital twin. So it's part of Industry 5.0. Yeah. So, oops, sorry, I jumped a little ahead. And getting that human back in the loop and so on. So, anyways, that's.
No, it's fantastic. I mean, it really supports that, better decision-making culture you and I talk a lot about. So let's get to our last poll question, and then we've got just a few minutes to maybe take some questions. I know that I have a few, but after today's session and listening to Mike's wisdom and experience, how likely are you guys now to explore a DTO pilot for your organization? Everyone's digesting the information.
Yeah. What did I just see?
Yeah. Okay, not right now, but some are game. Yeah. Yeah, and for those voting the not right now, maybe it's timing or fit. Mike's a great guy to talk to, and we could arrange, just to help support the use case or help you set up that business case or start to socialize the idea in your organization as well.
Yeah, it depends on where you are in your data. Data quality is a key thing. One of the interesting things on this in building these models, in fact, in manufacturing, where not just Crosby's, we had a couple of other manufacturing cases last year. We ran a program here in Canada that was funded by InGen and one of the regional development agencies, and we found, or they found, in doing that, that a lot of the data they had in their ERP system was, shall we say, highly suspect, because we have that validation technique, and they actually went back and they changed some of the data collection and data reporting out of ERP, because this was another validation point. It wasn't the single source of the truth, the ERP system. So
well, and there's that data quality aspect, and of course, I'm here at the Gartner show this week, and that is a hot topic, right? Especially with AI and AI initiatives, and to connect your dots, you got to collect those dots first. But what is the quality of the data that you're collecting, and what is the quality of the data that you're using for your AI initiatives? Because it will only amplify chaos if you feed it garbage data. So
exactly.
Things to think about. So let's wrap this up. We've got 2 minutes.
Yeah. Here's some additional information for you. There's good information on the QualiWare. They have a manufacturing webpage. These are 2 additional use cases in manufacturing that you might want to review. This is another AI-enabled tool that we've created. There's the link to that. It's an advisor tool, so you can actually put in, hey, I work in this industry. how could a DTO help me? Where are some of the key points where a DTO could benefit? So it's taken knowledge, not just of our view of DTO or our flavor of DTO, but there's a lot of industry knowledge in there as well. And people are finding that useful to kind of give them some ideas of where they might want to start. And then we have another thing coming up in early October. So we're going to be running that in a public format, the DTO in manufacturing workshop. So if you wanted to kind of go through that 8-step with an actual use case, and get some hands-on with the tool and things like that, that's a link to the training page on the CBP software site. So there's other training there too as well, but that's the one coming up for manufacturers this fall.
Okay. We are right on time, but I'm going to give you one question. If
Sure.
someone already has an ERP and production planning tool, why would they need a DTO on top of that?
Well, I kind of elaborated on what we saw in the manufacturing case we did last year as part of that program, is that they identified problems with the data in their ERP. It is certainly the main source of manufacturing data that feeds it.
Yeah.
But it's not, even though they do have planning modules, it doesn't, my experience has been anyways, and again, depends on the ERP system, of course, it doesn't have the depth and connectivity around all of the support requirements. So it may be very good on, a particular production line. It's more suited to digital twin versus DTO.
Okay.
So think of DTO kind of bringing in digital twin as a base and then adding all the extra requirements around that. So it's not going to be your sole source of data, but it's going to be one of your primary sources of data.
Excellent. We're a minute over, so we're going to wrap it up. Yeah, thanks everyone for joining us today. We really appreciate it. Mike, fantastic presentation and demo. We love the architecture for all approach, where everyone gets to play and benefit in the sandbox. I'm not sure if there's another question, but we're going to wrap up because we're over time, I think.
Brenda, yeah, those questions, Brenda. I mean, if you've got the people that sent them, we can follow up with them directly afterwards and provide that information for sure.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Mike.
Take care.
Looking forward to the next one in the series.
Cheers.